Okay, good evening. So the session is now recording and we are officially welcoming you to our monthly masterclass for the month of May. And my name is Mobile Pamela Klava. I am the co-founder and the chairperson of Inspired Growth NPC. And of course, in leadership, we work in circles. So I don't work alone. We've got a circle of powerful leaders that are with us, that are spearheading this organization, Inspired Growth NPC. Along with me, I'm also joined by Mrs. Mary Katamo, who is also a co-founder and our community lead. Mary, just officially greet our leaders that have joined us officially now that we are recording. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Pam. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Gadamo. I live in Pietermaritzburg, KZN. I am, as Pam said, I'm the co-founder and community lead of Inspired Growth. Very passionate about youth employability and helping young women and children as well. So yeah, really excited about this session and really excited to hear what we will be discussing this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mary. We also have Dr. Pet Mazibugo, who's also our Executive Director for Inspired Growth NPC. Dr. Pet, officially, please welcome our leaders and our community members on the call.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, colleagues. I am Dr. Pet Mazibugo. As for me, I am very passionate about leadership, governance, and ethics, and engineering is my first love. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us this evening. Looking forward to a great conversation. Good evening.
Thank you so much. And we also have, we don't work alone. Like I said, we've got a full board of advisors that actually keep us in line and make sure that we are honest and ethical in our dealings. And one of our advisory board members will also share some insights about her background and who she is, because we make it a point that each and every masterclass where we invite our guest speaker, we also invite one of our advisory board members. So on that, we've got Ms. Salem Makwarela. Salem, how are you? And welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Pam. Yes, I am really excited about this masterclass as well. It's a new experience for me with regards to engineering and energy. So I am looking forward to learning and gathering more insights around this topic. So thank you very much.
Awesome. And before I introduce briefly our guest speaker, Mr. Mlamuli Buthelezi, I'll just like to say that please, we always strive that these masterclasses are interactive. So Mary, if you will help us monitor the chat, please on the chat, post your LinkedIn profiles, your messages, welcome everyone. If you've got a question to ask, you are also more than welcome to post it on the chat, but we will have a dedicated Q&A session so that you can engage with our guest speaker as he enlightens us on today's topic. So without further ado, Mr. Mlamuli Buthelezi, welcome, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Pam. We are very well, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I've said thank you for gracing us. So Mr. Mlamuli is the executive chairman of Oak Tree Technologies, and he's actually going to be unpacking the topic today, which is bridging the skills gap in engineering, energy, and logistics. It's quite a very broad topic, Mr. Buthelezi, and I know that we will not finish it today, but obviously given your experience and the type of leader that you are, in the space, we know that you will do it justice in terms of just giving us the highlight in the next 40 minutes in terms of, really what it is that we are talking about today. I know that Dr. Pet has prepared very well to engage with you with some questions. So I hope you are ready and no pressure. So over to you, sir. And I really didn't want to pull up your bio and read, because I don't think that I can even do it justice because of just the accomplished leader that you are. So I always say that in these type of cases that I always hand over to the leader to actually introduce themselves and highlight the things that they are comfortable with and that are actually even in line with the topic that we are going to discuss. So please, a quick intro, and then we will then delve into the topic. Welcome. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nonkosi. Good evening again to you, the Inspired Growth team, and thanking you for the opportunity to come in online to engage. And good evening indeed to the people online. Gosh, where do I start? I guess the journey for me started in engineering. And, at the time, it was the journey of there were no black engineers. We didn't have big brothers. We were venturing into the fields that nobody had been in our families. And as such, Dr. Pett will attest to this. All of us, were the first engineers in our families, certainly of our generation. And privilege for our kids these days to say that they are engineers and you've got a dad who was an engineer. We didn't have that. So the journey started in engineering, yes, in the sectors like energy, in the refineries, SAPREF in Durban and engine refineries as well in subsequent years. So learning all of that from scratch was a new venture. Indeed, starting with skills acquisition. So that journey for us, was uncharted waters. And so I've moved in different industries. And yes, the energy sector, the transportation sector, working at Transnet, being tasked to lead the construction of ports when we built Guga from scratch, the deep water port of Nguga, which is a South African story that hardly ever gets spoken about. That, okay, there's a whole port that was constructed in the new South Africa. And it was built in budget within time, it's working, and there was never a Zondo commission or anything of the kind. And so there's a lesson from it that, how did we as a country manage to get that right? And what can we draw from it? And also it was a story of agility at the level of decision making. That, once the country decided to say that it's doing this, then the teams were enabled, it was politics meeting technical competence to be able to develop the country. So, worked in ports, worked in railways, wow, moving into the scheduled railways, I listen with interest these days. What's topical is the issue of the independent train operating companies that were announced and given certificates last week. And now there will be presumptions that you will be running those railways on a scheduled basis. When a third-party operator says, I want to run a train tomorrow at 10 o'clock, it must run tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So there are certain fundamentals that are assumed to be in place, and we will be watching that with interest. But my job in it was as a chief operating officer for the railways TFR for about 5 years, where we grew up what we were moving by railways from about 182 million tons to 226 million tons. And again, it was a massive endeavor by everybody involved to just begin to get that kind of growth in the railways of the country. So that's transportation and logistics, and also understanding where all these ports and railways fit in the global scheme of things, in the movement and the supply chains of coal, of copper, of all these things that get moved through, through our country, containers, and through our systems, that we have got to be very efficient as logistics supply chains if we're competing with the rest of the world. A person who sits in China can import their coal from Indonesia or from other parts of the world. And therefore, for you, South Africa, to be a lead supplier, you have got to be very competitive as an integrated logistics system. So being tasked to lead that and to lead that development for me was quite a huge learning experience, and also happy that also had the opportunity to contribute to make that grow. And so, how does it all link with today's topic? I think today's topic is fundamental. In fact, we don't have a country without addressing what this topic speaks about. Skills, closing the skills gap in these sectors, engineering, energy, and transportation. The continent itself has pronounced the aspiration of one common market in the continental free trade area. And if you're not going to have transportation and logistics and energy working, how are you going to be a common market as Africa? So it is basically one of those things that propel and fuels growth of the continent and of the country. Now, we find ourselves, what we discuss in these logistics meetings at a continental level is the issue of how disjointed the continent is in terms of logistics. It is unthought of that you can get on a train in Johannesburg and say you're going to Harare or going to Nairobi. It's unthought of. Why? Because the landside logistics of the continent are not as developed as they should be for one common market. So the inconvenience presents a good challenge for us practitioners in those spaces. So we find ourselves with disjointed logistics on the land side and non-participation on the water side. You are the biggest island in the world as Africa, with 38 out of 54 countries being maritime countries. And you've got resources more than everybody else, but you don't participate in global seaborne trade when everybody is moving your commodities more than anything else, arguably. So that becomes a discussion also at the continental level, that what gets moved between a Durban and a Lagos in Nigeria must be moved by Africans, or there must be some semblance of participation by Africans. So the maritime side in logistics, taking things to market, not saying to people, come and fetch it from my ports, but taking it to their doorsteps, creates new opportunities for these skills that we want to develop and grow as a country. I mean, there's been much jostling about legislation in South Africa, the draft merchant shipping bill, and the aspirations to have flag-carrying ships again as South Africa, to have our own SAA at sea type of situation, where we're able to take the things. A person comes and say, I want to buy iron ore from you, and you say, here's the price delivered to you in China. Not here is the price, come and fetch it from Saldanha or come and fetch it from Richards Bay. So I mention all these things because they also gives us a sense of where the opportunities lie in terms of the skills that we want to develop. Because we're saying that, being an island continent, being a country of 3,000 kilometers coastline, South Africa, and with territorial waters that are bigger than the country itself, we have got to be significant players in global seaborne trade. And we find ourselves with the Strait of Hormuz discussions going on at world level. And what does that mean for us? What that means for us is that you can't go through Hormuz, you can't go through the Suez Canal in Egypt. You've got to come around South Africa. And so what that means is that then we've got to service a much larger number of ships that come around our coastline than previously was the case. And so that as well begins to say that, the technical skills, the engineering skills, the logistics skills to support all that industry becomes absolutely important. These people come for the simplest of things. Some of them just want to refuel and leave. They don't want to even come into your ports. It's called bunkering in maritime. The issue of bunker fuels, the issue of, refreshments, and all those issues that they present opportunities for South Africans. And are we ready skills-wise to be able to do this? Are we ready facilities-wise to be able to do this? And so those are the spaces that we work in. And needless to say, energy is absolutely fundamental. In fact, the mere fact that we've closed refineries in South Africa puts us at a huge disadvantage. We would have taken advantage of these opportunities to a greater extent if the two refineries of Durban were still working. But when these ships come and need to be refueled, so it's all imported fuel that you store as South Africa and then you put into those ships. But it makes us a lot more dependent on foreign supplies than on what we are producing within country. So I think the more we produce within country, the more we create the demand side for the technical skills, that we want developed. That stimulating the demand side alone is a massive endeavor. We've got to have a growing gross GDP as a country to be able to absorb these skills into employment. Too many of them are sitting outside frustrated by the fact that I've now done and qualified, but guess what? I can't get a job somewhere. I can't get opportunities. So a growing industrial base, a growing economy is what's going to absorb these people into employment. I do worry about, do we really have a strategy to end unemployment? Not just to reduce it this quarter and it's bad the next quarter, and as the numbers will always tell us, but do we really have a shrewd strategy to end unemployment, in the foreseeable future, and how are we going to do it? I submit that by stimulating growth, in the economy of the country, and also by creating, very efficient transportation logistics, and connecting the continent, and having the energy systems at the level that they should be, is what's going to give us the kind of growth that gives opportunities to these technical skills that we're talking about. Let me stop there, Nonkosi, for now, so that we can interact.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Buthelezi. And I was thinking, was that just an introduction, or have we started the session already?
Just the introduction.
No, like I said, that's why I couldn't even introduce you, because how was I going to do that? No, thank you so much, Mr. Buthelezi. So, Dr. Pet, please, I will hand over to you to just really kickstart the discussion with Mr. Mlamuli Buthelezi in the context of our topic, that is bridging the skills gap in engineering, energy, and logistics. So over to you, Dr. Pet. As I said to our leaders that have joined, we will have a dedicated Q&A session once we're done with the presentation from our guest speaker. Over to you, Dr. Pet.
Thank you so much, Shenge. Thank you so much, Nyamana. Let me just zoom into the question that says, how do we get a fair share in the global seaborne trade as South Africa?
Yeah, no, it's a profound question. As South Africa, we're part of organizations like BRICS. All the BRICS countries have got their own shipping lines, at least the original countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, they've got their own shipping lines. We trade with these countries, huge numbers. And we've built a culture that says that they come and fetch from us. And when we import, they deliver to us. Now, we used to have the submarines and the Unicorn shipping, which were South African flag-carrying ships, which unfortunately were sold off. Submarine was sold to AP Moller, Seal and Maersk. And I think Unicorn shipping, the last I heard, they were registered in Singapore or somewhere there. Yeah. Now, how do we then participate? Firstly, we do need to push to have our own ships out at high seas as South Africa. We have got enough commodities that we move to be able to allocate a portion of to be moved by South African ships to market. This is not just a South African issue, it's an Africa issue. It's an Africa issue that the continent itself is not participating in global seaborne trade. I think the last time I checked, a $3 trillion global industry. So we've got to have those ships at high waters, and the government, as I said, has been working on the draft merchant shipping bill itself. That basically says that we are now moving in that direction as a country. Some have started. There is 1, 2, or 3 entities, that are doing, but to a very small scale, shipping. And we need to scale up. Government needs to enable this, and we have to have more and bigger ships in the shipping registry of South Africa under the Department of Transport. That's where you start. Then, needless to say, you develop the supporting industry. Where do they get maintained? Where do they get all sorts of things, these ships? And the skills as well. The seafarers, you train them as South Africa. The engineers and the sailors themselves, and you create those opportunities for your people as a country. So we have no other choice but to do it that way. And in fact, even some of the landlocked countries are doing better than us, by the way. You look at countries like Ethiopia, They nominate the vessels for what they move at high seas. They arrange insurance. They do all sorts of things as the countries. They are participants and players in global seaborne trade. And we find ourselves not being players at all as South Africa, and that needs to change.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and we're just as important as the Strait of Hormuz and Suez Canal, by the way. Because all these ships are forced to come around here. So we're a significant maritime player in global terms. Thanks, Dr. Pitt.
Thank you so much, Mlamuli. In the context of what we are talking about today, and I want us to calibrate. And how we calibrate, I want to ask a question that says, what does the phrase skills gap practically mean in the context of engineering, energy, and logistics as per our topic today?
Yeah, skills gap, basically to me, it means that what is the demand for the country in terms of skills? Firstly, you see the missing piece of the puzzle in South Africa is this thing called the National Development Plan. People hardly speak about it. You develop, you put on the table a development plan as a country and say, I want by 2030 to have moved from point A, to point B. And on the basis of that development plan, you begin to say that, well, I'm going to need a lot of engineers to be able to sort out my energy, transportation, and engineering matters. This is what I'm going to need. And then you say that this is where I am exactly right now. And so therefore, I don't have enough artisans, I don't have enough welders, I don't have enough, seafarers, I don't have enough of all these kind of skills. And so the gap is advised by your plan as a country, and as a country and as a continent, as I've said. And I think that so the skills gap is for real. And if I look at the National Development Plan as it was put together, albeit we don't speak much about it as a country.
Thank you so much. One of the elements that we're talking about today is logistics.
Yes.
So I want to zoom into that, Babu Sheng, and talk a little bit about disruption. So the question is, how can logistics industry better prepare for disruptions such as port congestion, energy instability, and global supply chain shocks?
Yes. How can we better? Creating resilient supply chains, I think, is the language that gets used in this space. That each one of these disruptions, when they happen, we need to learn from them and get better. We now know that every year, every second year, we get floods, in KZN and those places. Today, this time they are hitting the Eastern Cape. On the Eastern Seaboard, we are getting floods. They hit Mozambique and Limpopo a couple of months ago. We get this every year. Now, are you just going to replace a bridge that has been washed away? Or are you going to say, how do I redesign these things to be more resilient? To be able to deal with the conditions of today, not the conditions of, 30, 40 years ago when you build that infrastructure. So it is developing the systems and infrastructure that is resilient. It is also learning from the catastrophes that you faced as a country. COVID-19, a case in point. That suddenly the country could not import, had to wait, join a queue for vaccines. Yeah. And now it makes you have to revisit what you need to be able to produce within a country versus what you should be importing. The issues of the Middle East right now should tell us something about energy. That, are we going to be totally dependent on imported fuels? What proportions do we want? What percentage should we import? What percentage should we be manufacturing locally? So it is about learning from your current situation and then basically setting up your infrastructure in a country in a way that makes you more resilient and more robust. That's what it is, in my view.
Thank you, Shenge. But before I allow you to continue, and then and let Pam take over so that you can continue, I've got one question for this session. You talk of South Africa. If we talk of South Africa as SA Inc., would you say South Africa is a learning organization? If yes, why? If no, why? What are the missed opportunities?
Yeah, the missed opportunities is that sometimes it's like we do not address supply ahead of demand. There has been situations, as I say, I mean, ships right now, many of them are coming down around our ports, and we are not in a position to give them the services they require, and we are not showing as much growth as we should because of the increased traffic. Maputo is showing growth. Walvis Bay is showing growth. South African ports are not, and you say why? So you are not responding on time to deal with growing demand, and so we will need to focus on that in learning and response, and also don't postpone things unnecessarily. I mean, we're talking about expansion of the container terminal and deepening the beds at the port of Durban. For the past 10 years, this thing has not been done. So that you are able to bring in bigger ships into that port and to be able to give those people a service. Ship repair facilities, the dry docks that they want in Durban and in Richards Bay, and you get companies like the Mediterranean Shipping saying that we want a bigger dock in the port of Durban, and we are going to guarantee you so many ships a year to come into that dock. It has still not been built, but the demand is there. So we do not move as fast as we should. And I think that that should be the central focus area. And I think that part of our issues is sometimes continuity, we don't manage it well. Continuity. That when a Dr. Pat moves on, the next person walks in and chooses to do totally different things. And now you wake up, 10 years down the road, you're not able to service the industry the way you should. So in a learning country, you do not allow anything to regress in a learning country. When Team X has taken things to a certain level, the next team's job is to build on that. It's not to go backwards. Otherwise, you are not going to build a country. If you go forward, you go backwards and forward and backwards all the time as you change people. So that's where we need to improve in being a learning country, in my view.
Thank you so much, Mlamuli. Pam, let me hand back to you and Mlamuli to take us to the next session.
Yes, no, thank you so much. I am so enlightened by this topic, Mr. Buthelezi. Thank you so much. And also, one of the reasons why we even started this platform was also to see how do we actually, inspire your young professionals, maybe in the context of this topic, specifically in the fields of engineering, energy, and logistics. So, Mr. Mlamuli, what would you say to a young person that, because we record these sessions and we upload them on our YouTube channel and we promote them to different locations. So what would you say to young professionals that are in these fields that may listen to this in terms of, grabbing the opportunities, and what are some of the roadblocks that are hindering growth as far as our young talent is concerned in this space?
No, thanks for that, Nonkosi. I think to the young people, it is to say that it's a walk that we've walked. And I think that even when there was not much hope, there was nothing like a black technician, a black engineer, and, there was nothing like it. And I think that it is, again, at that time in our country, where hope itself can be the endangered species. And for the young people, it is to say that these kind of skills, in fact, should be very fashionable. Nobody, gets unemployed if you're a good electrician. nobody gets unemployed if you're a good carpenter. From the fundamental technical skills, growing to the to the engineering, degrees, design offices and material sciences and all these things that we do in engineering, all the way to management and leadership. That actually it is the right building blocks for any nation. We need to learn from countries like the Chinas and those ones that seem to be getting things right. That these kind of skills are at the center of developing those countries. And so it is to say to the young people that continue to work hard in your skills acquisition, grab the opportunities that come your way with wisdom. Also learn the entrepreneurial side, along the way, because it's also very clear now that we also just can't wait for somebody to say that I've got a job for you. But we have got to skill ourselves up to be able to start working, and as I say, I mean, a good carpenter is never unemployed. A good welder is never unemployed. And it is for the young people to learn from that and to build bottom up, solid technical skills, then build the business acumen, be able to create demand for your services. And if one big company comes and offers you a job, fine and good, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world. And that's the mindset I think that we should have. And I think that we need to also work our networks all the time. Sometimes we do not, talk and network amongst ourselves to the extent that we should. That opportunities come up and we don't know where to find you, as an example. So it's also to be out there and to be networked in the industries.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. That's why we have communities like these and platforms like these to actually say where we are encouraging, our counterparts to actually join these communities so that they can actually have an opportunity to listen and engage with leaders like yourself that under normal circumstances they wouldn't ordinarily have the opportunity to interact with. So thank you so much for your time. And I see that on the chat, Mary, there's a statement or a question from, because it's also important that we engage with our leaders, Mr. Mlamuli, that have joined us so that we can just hear their voices. So Mary, if you can help me just read some of the questions or comments.
Okay, there is a question from Raymond. The first one is, with the rapid transformation in the energy and logistics sectors through digitalization, automation, and sustainability requirements, which future critical skills should professionals prioritize over the next 5 years? That's the first question. Okay, and then Raymond has a second question. It says, what practical strategies can organizations implement to ensure that graduates and young professionals entering the engineering sector are equipped with both technical competencies and workplace readiness skills required by industry? That's the second question. Thanks, Raymond.
So it's quite a loaded one. Maybe, Mr. Mlamuli, we tackle the first one. So also, Raymond, you are more than welcome to unmute yourself and engage with our guest speaker, Mr. Mlamuli, where we may miss the key points on your question, yeah?
Yeah. No, I think, yes, there is rapid transformation, but there's always been changes. But the fundamentals of engineering and logistics skills are not going to change significantly. You're still going to need to move things from origin to destination, and at a technical level, yes, you will learn the artificial intelligence, the greenings and all these new things that are coming up. You learn them as part of, your studies in these areas. Greening at high seas is massive and it's a global issue. How do you make sure that the ships are emitting a lot less, carbon dioxide as they traverse international waters? So that becomes an agenda for the day and for a time window. But at the end of the day, the technical skills of how to maintain a ship, how to run a ship, the compliance, the safety standards, the security standards remain the same and basic. So I think that, the rapid transformation that we see in these industries, yes, the surge of the third-party players, and the private players is fine. In fact, it's already happening all over the world anyway, so it's not new. And whether today you say, okay, it's Transnet that's running the line between Durban and Johannesburg, and tomorrow it's a private entity, you still need the train drivers. A train driver is going to remain a train driver. You still need the technician who must walk and inspect the rail itself. You still need the person who's going to do the maintenance of the stones, and the shutdowns and all those things that need to be done on both the rolling stock and the infrastructure. So those fundamental skills remain. Yes, the systems are improving, and there is a greater push for better visibility of performance. Where is my container? Where is my train? Where is my this? Customers are always going to ask for that. And therefore, you need to improve now on the systemic side of what you do. And therefore, young people in all these areas, they have to grasp the opportunities to learn. And so the next 5 years, is going to be, as I say, the emergence of the private players, both in energy and in and by the way, in logistics, and the emergence of the private players. Energy generation is, power generation is power generation, and whether it's done by a private company or it's done by an ESCOM, and so it is to say that for young people, it is to grasp the opportunities to learn and be very solid at the level of technical skills, and then build the leadership skills. You can't be purely a technocrat and yet you're managing people. And this is some of the humble lessons we had to learn in the journey. There came a time where, Mlamuli, you're no longer an engineer. You're not doing engineering. You're not designing anything. You're dealing with people, human beings. And you're not going to treat human beings like robots. So it is to acquire those skills as you move along and remain very passionate about the field. So it is relevant skills. They are in demand, and the young people must grab the opportunities. Strategies for graduates and to make them workplace ready. I still think that industry needs to come back and invest in absorbing more young people into opportunities to learn. Me, I would be one of those that support a greater push that, we must give young people an opportunity to learn, in these industries that we have in the country. It does not serve our interest to have some of these significant industries getting closed down. The closure of an ArcelorMittal, what does it mean for Vanderbijlpark, Newcastle, and Saldanha? It does not serve our interests as a country. The closure of refineries. We have got to industrialize and push the industrial base of the country to grow, because then it presents the opportunities for the young people. And this thing that it's cheaper to import it from China versus making it locally is also short-sighted, by the way. Because when global catastrophes happen, it leaves you with nothing as a country. It leaves you with nothing. It's not just about runs and cents. It's also about sovereignty. It's also about continuity at a country level, that we have got to be able to make some of the vaccines, some of the medication within country, so that you don't find yourself one day again, now there's COVID-2, and you've got no supplies as a country. Why? Because you said that it was cheaper to import them than to make it locally. It's not just about runs and cents. So there is some work and repositioning at industries level, at country level, to say that this is where we should be. And that in turn presents opportunities for young people. So to make them workplace ready, there is work indeed that gets done in class to expose them to the things that are relevant, for today, the AIs and all those things that are relevant for today, expose them to that, but the pull from industry. I mean, I can't overemphasize this. We need to create the right pool, to be able to absorb these young people, first and foremost, to learn and then to grow.
Thank you so much. And Raymond, just checking that you are covered there. Okay, no, great. So, Mr. Mlamuli, I'm not sure if you've left something else in terms of your presentation, or I can continue to ask for more questions from our leaders on the call.
Well, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of insights, because some of it, I purposefully share it so that, to create greater awareness. To create greater awareness. Particularly, a lot of people will say that, hey, but we've never been in a room with a person who explains, maritime the way you do. We never saw it that way. Yes, we hear about this thing at a distance, but we've never looked at it closely. And it is to say that, first and foremost, it's to understand our strengths as a country and to play our role in the continent. We are not, in my view, playing our role in the continent to the extent that we should. The continent does not have another ESCOM. The continent does not have another Transnet. The continent does not have many of the things we have in South Africa. Therefore, because we have what we have, we should take the lead in the development and the integration of the continent. Even the African Union has asked us to do this as a country. Certainly in the railways, they've asked us to do this. And that, serves two purposes. Yes, there is what the continent needs, to go forward as a continent, but it also creates opportunities for the skills we're talking about here. It creates opportunities that, suddenly you are able to work here and to work on the continent. And we're not doing that to the extent that we should. And we've spoken about, as I say, the high seas. Similarly, let us be players at high seas. Let us be players in the integration of the continent and also in the development of the energy systems of the continent, by the way. Nigeria has come across very assertively. I think that Dangote is doing a fantastic job, and everybody is watching this. A 650,000 barrels per day refinery. That is 4 or 5 times the size of Sapref in Durban, that he has built, on the continent, and said that we can't be exporting crude oil and importing all the finished products as a country. But today in South Africa, we're exporting the chrome, the magnetite, the iron ore, and all these things, and importing steel. All the ingredients to make it, you are exporting. You are importing the finished goods. And I'm saying that Nigeria has said that, no, we can't be a producer of crude oil and also be importing petrol and fuel, as a country. And I think that South Africa also needs to join this big push, and use it to drive the industrialization of the continent. I mean, I got the shock of my life when I heard that, Highveld Steel was closed down in Mpumalanga. And not far from Highveld Steel was the construction of the Kusile Power Station. And the steel in constructing Kusile Power Station came from imports. You are closing your own steel mill as a country, and you are importing it just because you say it's cheaper to do so. Now, the left and the right hand at the country level needs to work together. Because it's not just about saving money. That's short-termism. Yes, you're going to make savings now, but you've lost an industry and you've lost jobs. You've lost the capability, to make steel in the country. So it is to say that the big picture, management of the big picture, is what should drive how we respond with all these industries. And that in turn creates the opportunities that we want for these skills that we're developing within the country. Let me stop there for now, Nonkos, for some bit of interaction.
Yes, no, absolutely. Honestly, you are giving us, it's quite a thought-provoking topic and a discussion, this one. Thank you so much. And I know that Dr. Petty, you've got some follow-up questions, but then also Mary will continue to monitor the chat. So, but before we go to the chat, Dr. Pett, maybe do you like to engage us on your follow-up questions?
Thank you so much, Pam. Mlamuli, I don't want to talk to an engineer in you. We've been doing that in the last, say, 40 minutes. I want to talk to the executive and the leader in you right now. Therefore, two questions. The first one is, what uncomfortable truths must industry leaders like yourself confront about talent development? That's the first one. Second one, what legacy should today's industry leaders like yourself leave for the next generation? Thank you.
No, thank you, Nonkos. I think the uncomfortable truths about talent development is that sometimes we let the income statements and balance sheets of today be what drives our future outlook. That you will save the cents today and get a good bonus, but in the next so many years, you don't have the skills that you should. We have grown over time to de-emphasize the need for investment in skills. Apprenticeships, when we were coming up, Dr. Pett, were much stronger in the country than they are today, and they were a lot more prominent. You knew that a person has to make it at Olifantsfontein. All of them came from all over the country by train to Olifantsfontein to do a trade test. And you had to come back with that trade test. And industry was ready to absorb you. The whole chain was working a lot more seamlessly. And the uncomfortable truth is this, that the chain is not working well in a seamless way at the moment. You are working to stimulate growth and demand for these skills. And you are not driven by, I need to save today, to report in my London listing or wherever that I've made profits. You've made profits and you've paid your CEO or your chairman 100 million rands for some ridiculous numbers that we see. That we see sometimes being reported on business day and on financial statements of the listed companies, that they get paid mega numbers, 100 million plus, and on the other side is you've been cutting costs like crazy, and as if there is no future here to be managed. So I think that we need to get back to the balance. The balance of working the chain, skills development, creation of opportunities, building the country, a healthy growing GDP, then you have begun to cut down unemployment. The uncomfortable truth right now is that we don't have a strategy for unemployment, to end unemployment in the country. I'm yet to see it. Maybe it's me who's ignorant, but I'm yet to see it. That, I want to hear somebody say that, give us 10 years, this thing will be ended. And by the way, our population is not big compared to the China's. How does China keep 1.5 billion people employed? How do they do it? They even construct cities ahead of time. I mean, it was for the first time I went to a place in China, where it's almost like downtown Johannesburg under construction from scratch, the whole downtown Johannesburg. Now, a CFO is going to say that, my return on investment here is not going to be what I want as ROI. But there's a big picture that says that the 1.5 billion population must be kept in employment. That's more important than your ROI. in a country like China. So those are the uncomfortable truth I think we need to look at. Then, as I say, the uncomfortable truth as well is the issue of poor continuity management. Poor continuity management. You can't have ESCOM is running with no load shedding for a number of years, then there is changes, then load shedding is back. Why? It means that continuity was not properly managed by South Africa Incorporated. Say
Pam, I've lost Ungangelele. Do you know what happened?
Yeah, I think we lost him. But we will. Can you just try and get him back, Dr. Pet, maybe on
All
WhatsApp?
right. All right. Let me just do that. Let me do that then, colleagues.
Because I think we still have about 3 more questions, or 2 more questions rather, in the chat. So it might just be a network issue, but we need to just continue with the session. But when he comes back, he will then just finish off. Another agenda item that we have, Mary, perhaps maybe we can, he's back. So
Chair, I'm back.
welcome back.
I don't know what happened there. I think I got sabotaged.
No, I can
that's
tell you,
fine.
Babu Buthelezi, it's one of the uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, no, but it's good. It's good to engage. I think that we have got to have better continuity as a country. It's the only way to build a country. You know,
Yeah.
if Mlamuli and team have done 226 million tons on the railways, the next person that comes must do 250, 300 million tons. And don't come and tell us that, no, we've done 160 something, now. You're not building a country if you do that. And this applies across the board, because you want to have continuous growth. And continuous growth is what gives opportunity. It's what helps us to end the unemployment crisis. I got the shock of my life. It's one thing when we discuss it here, as a country within South Africa, the whole issue of unemployment. It's another thing when you hear it in platforms outside, in the world, in some of these business schools, when they say that South Africa, you've got the worst unemployment of the world. So we've got to confront those uncomfortable truths and make sure that we are creating growth every time there's any change in a country. The legacy that we want to leave, because you spoke about legacy as well, the legacy that we want to leave, as I say, is that we have got to create systems that outlive us. Systems that whether you are there or you are not, the country continues to go forward. And if you look at the Singapores and you look at the Indonesias, the Koreas, and all these places, over many decades, what they got right is the fact that there is one script for the whole country. There is one development plan. Everybody has a role to play for a period of time, and they move on. But you do not walk in and say, I don't think I like this plan, I want to do something different. Because then you are now in the game of reversing some of the gains that have been achieved. And so really, this is what we would want to see. This is what we would want to see, that particularly for the young people, the young people must learn from the things that we've done and we've achieved, but, more importantly, they must do better than us. And if they do better than us, then we're moving forward as a country and a society. And I think it's important as well that we do not become the kind of leaders that get threatened by the good and competent young people. A good and competent person that you work with should not be a threat to you. And I think we need to stop the stupid culture as well of, I can't work with you unless you are my friend. That as well is very short-sighted. We're a country of 60-odd million people. if tomorrow you get placed in a Vodacom or any of the companies, you're not working with people that you know there. You are working with people with whom you are combined by a mission to achieve the objectives of the company. And I think that we have shifted too much in the direction of, unless you are my friend, you can't work with me. And it's a new thing. It's a new thing, that I think at a legacy level, we are not going to be able to give young people opportunity if we believe that they must be our friends before we help them. And they come in their thousands in massive numbers. And so it is that maturity to be able to assume the role that we should in paving the path for them to come in and to grow and to make a contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Babu Mlamuli Buthelezi. You've really exceeded my expectations by far, but let me hand back to Pam in the interest of time.
Wow. We've got more questions for you in the chat, Mr. Mlamuli. So we've got a question from Linda, which is quite a loaded one as well. So
Okay.
Linda, if you're comfortable, to just unmute and ask the question and actually ask what you've written in the chat if you're comfortable with that approach.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I can't do video. I'm cooking.
No, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
okay.
so I just wanted to find out, I was a bit late, but when I came in, you were talking about the congestion of Durban Port, et cetera, and I know about the issue. More than 10 years ago, Transnet was already talking about it, and it's 2026 and we're still talking. So I just wanted to find out what are the key things that we need to do as a country to move the dial, to make the shift that is needed. Because in my experience, I've seen that there's often a very, very huge gap between strategy and execution, and that is where we struggle in most SOEs and in government as well. We are just not in sync in terms of what happens there. So, yeah, we do get left behind as SA because we either consult too much or ponder, or sometimes we actually don't understand the urgency of the decision, the very decision that we're delaying. And we just, yeah. So that was my input. Thank you.
No, thanks for that, Linda. I think let me respond in this way. It is directly linked, in my view, with poor continuity management. You can't have Durban Port is working for a number of years, and the next thing now, they are ranked the worst performing container terminals in the world. That's the World Bank report. That, when did this happen? Are we learning from generation to generation and have the right continuity as a country? It is exactly the same issue we're talking about Eskom and load shedding. That, when Eskom gets out of load shedding and the current leadership hands over the baton, the next leadership must grow from there. It must not now tell us that we're back at stage 6 load shedding. And so the issues of the Durban Port is similar. Yes, there's been changes also on the demand side, because there's more ships that are coming around the Cape route than used to be. But again, it is our job to provide capacity ahead of demand and to drive efficiencies within the ports and within our logistics chains. So for me, it is the same issues. We should not find ourselves in a situation where you are performing worse than you were doing a number of years ago. Totally unacceptable. At a country level, not even at individual entities level, at a country level, if we're in the business of building the country. Strategy to execution, damn, some of us were always on the spot about that. You're going to go and sit for 3 days and strategies are drawn. But by the way, somebody needs to then get out of here, roll up the sleeves, get everybody to march in one straight line, the game plan for implementation, it gets done. And you build a culture that the strategies that we set are strategies that we implement. It is very easy for people to get into a culture of giving you excuses why things are not happening. We used to fight this fight, and I can see some are on the line here about exactly that. That, you know, when you come to some of these meetings, we look you in the eye, we want to see you as a problem solver. We don't want to see you as a person who just comes and gives us a lot of stories of why things are not working. That's not why that's not why you are put into these roles. You are in these roles to solve problems. You're not in these roles to tell us why things are not working. So it is basically being very clinical at the level of translating strategies to implementation. That we need to jack up our game, and it starts with right passengers on the right seats. You know, we knew that in mega organizations, job number one is to make sure that you've got the right passengers on the right seats. When you have the right passengers on the right seats, then you can have the conversation about why are we not performing, what support is needed, and how quickly are we going to get out of trouble. So mission critical that execution, we shift the mode. You know, we've had enough now about the challenges, but we shift the mode to we are now doing something about it. I mean, I can see some of the folks that I worked with. We walked in, 21% of the trains were departing on time. And we say, folks, this is not acceptable. You know, we need to move to the majority of the trains departing on time. They moved from 21 to 88% of the trains, nothing but departing on time. And I'm saying that it's exactly what's needed right now with the introduction of the private players. How are you going to work with the private player if their train can't depart on time? You know, so strategy to execution, one of the fundamental issues at a country level, even at government level for that matter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mlamuli. We've got more questions. I'm also just cognizant of the time, but I think you also don't want to leave anyone behind. So I think there was also, I'm not sure who's next, Mary. I think it was Sandile.
Agnes. I think it's Agnes talking about the rate of unemployment, and then also that we need to focus on the TVET for those young people. Yeah.
Yes, but before Agnes, there's Sandile Khoza. So Sandile, would you like to maybe unmute and engage with our guest speaker, Mr. Mlamuli?
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to everyone. And Sam Mlamuli, thank you very much for the insightful presentation. My input in the form of a question is, say, what role should the Institute of Higher Learning, our universities, TVETs, and your DUTs should be playing? I'm asking this at the backdrop of just observation that sometimes I feel that they are merely producing graduates and they're not in touch with what the industry wants. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, thanks, Katini, for that. And absolutely. I think that the higher learning institutions like DUT, MUT, TUT, and all of them have also shifted away from industry. You know, when we trained in these institutions, 95% of us were sponsored by industries as students now. You know, we had sponsors. I was a Shell student at MUT and DUT. You know, and you know you're gonna go and spend 6 months at the Institute of Higher Learning, and go and spend another 6 months, you know, at Shell. In my example, Unilever, all these companies were sponsoring many students. Sasol. So the gap has opened between them and industry, and it is to the detriment of the students. Because the model was a model of where students are directly sponsored by industries and they are given these opportunities. So I think that they need to close the gap, these councils and what have you, if there's one thing they should address, it's how they close the gap with industry. Because industries, what they are producing is for industry. The product they are producing must be absorbed by industry. And I do not get the sense that the engagement are as rigorous as they should between these institutions and industries. And also, needless to say, the pattern we saw as well is the moment there begins to be noise about procurement issues and this tender and that tender that has gone wrong within these institutions, it repels industry. It repels industry because these industries used to put in money, used to, equip the laboratories and do all sorts of things for those institutions. But what they wanted was governance that was straight. That we need to pay attention to those issues and make sure that we do not give industry reasons to keep away from these institutions because it then compromises the students. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mlamuli. And we also then just have a follow-up comments from Agnes Motlalo Malibani. So I'm not sure if you would like to pose a question or would like me to read Agnes, but you are more than welcome to unmute if you'd like to engage with our guest speaker. Okay, so in the interest of time, so Agnes really wrote that it's a very good answer, skills development and TVET is the path. SA unemployment is at 32% and staggering 45%. In contrast, TVET enjoy much prospect 80%. So I think she's just highlighting the rate of unemployment and the role of the TVET colleges they can play in terms of actually, how do we equip the students as far as skills development is concerned. And then we also have a follow-up comment from Linda. And thanks, Shege. We need and enjoy your strong and decisive leadership. Yes, so thank you so much indeed. I fully agree. And I'm not sure if I've missed anyone else. And then there is also Ntombenhle Mazibuko stating, I'm not sure if you would like to unmute and ask the question, but the statement is that at last somebody is brave enough to spell it out. We need a lot of Mr. Shenge in our country for things to shift forward towards the right direction, rather. We need a political willpower as well. So thank you. There is a comment from Ntombenhle Mazibuko. And then there's Agnes saying her mic is giving her problem, so she couldn't unmute. And then there's a comment from Mandy Sasho, who says that loving this conversation, I want to bring things to taking initiative as young professionals. How can young professionals continue to create opportunities to improve the value in the skills gap, the line of networking and using entrepreneurship to create value? So there is a question. I think it was addressed earlier, but maybe if you'd like to elaborate on it briefly for the next minute or so, Mandisa, please kindly unmute yourself and just clarify your statement. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just trying to write it very quickly. Thank you for the opportunity. I like the idea of that. So there's a lot of young professionals who've studied, were continuing to upskill in terms of doing professional development courses. But as you're saying, that there is that gap in terms of the opportunities from industry. I like the idea of what Mlamuli was saying around entrepreneurship and using that as a way to also facilitate getting skills. And I'd like to just understand a little bit more around that of what can we do as well in terms of that space, because I mean there's lots of things that we are doing, but I think this entrepreneurial space is something that I'd like to hear more about of what we could try.
Awesome.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. I think thanks for the inputs. I'll deal with the themes, because we've touched on quite a few issues. The TVET college is absolutely important. Again, it's one of the areas that I think that we were a lot stronger, years ago than where we find ourselves as a country. And it's one of those things again that going forward we should never go worse than where we find ourselves. One of the rules, because these kind of rules for me straddle political terms. They talk about developing a country. They talk about building the economy. They talk about creating, sustainable opportunities for the people. So TVET colleges are very relevant, and the kind of skills that learners get out of there are skills that can, be used to start opportunities. And I think that so the young people must not get demoralized, because these kind of challenges are going to take time to resolve. The unemployment thing is going to take time to resolve. But as I've said before, we need to have a shrewd plan to end it. And it cuts across many areas of government to be able to do this. GDP growth at 5%, and these type of issues become what you do and do on a consistent basis. You are not going to get GDP growth at huge numbers if your lungs of the economy, your logistics chains are not functional. It means your imports and exports are not moving at the level that they should because your chains are inefficient. So very important that we deal with those on one side, which then creates the kind of pool I was talking about for the skills that the TVET colleges and the universities are producing. Leadership and leadership approach, as I say, for me, it was one of the most humbling things, having been trained as an engineer. If there's one course we didn't do in the engineering studies, was a thing called leadership. And it is what you learn on the job, but very quickly, you learn that you are going to need very strong people around you to be able to achieve the results that you want to achieve. And it is also creating the right kind of leadership, the leadership that does not get threatened by competence, the leadership that does not get driven by short-term issues, but the leadership that focuses on developing and building the country. That in doing that, you begin to gain ground in creating opportunities for the skills that we're talking about here. But leadership, the people side is more important than anything. I mean, in the railways, we knew that even if the locomotives are not working, if the people are within the right mind frame and are really committed to the work that they are doing, they are able to do magic. If you get that wrong with the best rolling stock, and the brand new train operators, you are not going to achieve the numbers that you want. You are as good as the people that are around you. Very important in leadership that, you are mindful of that because it's what creates sustainability even beyond your own presence. The political willpower, absolutely crucial. In fact, I've seen, as I say, different phases of this movie in South Africa. I spoke earlier about the port development that we once had to do and had to lead in the Eastern Cape. Politics came, the political leaders came and said that this port must be built. And they removed all the bureaucracies around it. And the thing was built within budget, within time. It's working today. Mega infrastructure project in the country. That if you do not get all these arms working together, it creates frustration even to development opportunities, which will create opportunity for the young people and for the skills to be absorbed. So entrepreneurship is indeed, the buzzword, and but I think that, it's what has driven many economies in Africa, this thing of entrepreneurship, that we do need to encourage young people, once they've acquired these skills, to also think of ways of how they can pull together and be able to start businesses. But you're not going to start a business before you have an understanding of what's going on out there in the marketplace. So these kind of engagements like today and many similar ones become very important, that you are interacting with the people that you should be interacting with in the direction of progress. But our job in it is to make sure that we support these young people. You can't just be focused on, as I said, issues of the income statement and balance sheet, and that's it. Yes, they are important, but at the same time, we've got to be the lions that breed other lions. Because if you don't breed other lions, the pack gets wiped off. And that's the type of issues that you deal with, that, yes, short-term goals and what needs to be achieved in the short term is important. But more importantly, it is about building, for the long term. And we need young people to be able to come in and begin to play meaningful roles in the opportunities that the country presents. If we talk about right now, the third-party operators of trains, somebody should be saying, what are the young people going to be doing in this? If we talk about, independent power producers and all those type of issues that you hear in the country, young people and their role in it. So we are here and we're ready to always support. But this is the journey that needs the South Africa Incorporated to march in one line. And sometimes we do not march in one line as South Africa Incorporated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mlamuli. It's like, we can continue with this discussion. Like I said, it's such a broad topic, and this 45 minutes, even beyond the 45 minutes, it does not do justice at all. But you have done it justice by highlighting the critical points that we needed to hear today, and actually opened up quite an interactive engagement in the chat, which I'm going to close now, lastly, by reading Spencer Stewart's comment that says that government has allowed Engine to knock down the refinery into a storage facility, allowing it to bank profits from the insurance following the fire, rather than forcing it to rebuild with these funds, and suppress, which is BP and Shell, to also walk away with the insurance money from the flood. The restoration of these facilities would have created lots of jobs in both the present and the future. So I think really Spencer's comment is really echoing some of the points that you have made in your presentation, Mr. Mlamuli. So with that, Siyabonga, Sandile is saying Siyabonga. If it is to be, it is up to us. True indeed. Any closing comments before we let you go? We have taken Salem's time, but I know that she will forgive us. And maybe Dr. Pet's closing reflections, and you say our goodbyes and our thank you to Mr. Mlamuli for presenting such an engaging. I think we are compelled to invite him back on one of the sessions in the upcoming months, because this topic is not finished.
Oh, it's not.
It's not. Indeed. Pam, maybe let me say this to Mlamuli. Thank you so much from all of us. You've certainly exceeded our expectation. But in the interest of time, Mlamuli, I'm just going to ask for one parting statement from you. It comes in the form of a question. We talk about AI and AI and AI. We hardly talk about HR, which is human intelligence. Your closing comment, and talk about human intelligence, and then you can converge and close.
Yeah. I think that we can never do without even the advancement with technologies, will never say that you no longer need human intelligence. And I think that it remains central even in the future. And we need to move with the systems and the technologies and the opportunities that come up as the different industrial revolutions that we go through, as the country and the world. But the human intelligence is absolutely important. I think that the closing comment from my perspective, we always used to say that this thing is a buffalo hunt. And it's a story out of Africa, which is a story of teamwork. And that buffaloes don't just bring down a lion, they need to be organized as a team. I mean, the lions, they need to be organized as a team to bring down a buffalo. And with clear roles, flat structures, and a singular mission to bring it down. High risk, high reward, but once they've achieved it, they are certain, to receive their fill for the next so many days. So similarly here, the topic is massive. It is a buffalo hunt. It is teamwork. It is to say that how do we tackle it together in a way that makes sense to us and in a way that creates opportunities that are going to pull us out of all the challenges that we face at the moment in a structured, progressive way that gains us ground. So for me, that's what it is. It is a buffalo hunt.
Thank you so much, Nyamana. Thank you so much, Shenge. Thank you so much, Ngangelele. Uyobonga namaqhawe uphiwe nemqhele. Siyabonga.
Siyabonga. Ngibonga konke umuntu ngaleli thuba lokuthi sikwazi ukukhuluma namhlanje.
No, thank you so much. Sir, please, we will kindly let you go. And we will send you the recording of this session once we have uploaded on our YouTube channel. And we'll also obviously send it to everyone that has joined the call today as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, so we just like to thank Mr. Mlamuli. And in the few minutes that we have left, I am so sorry, Salem, but I'm going to humbly ask our guests, our leaders that have joined the call, if they can spare us just 5 more minutes so that you can do justice to your 10-minute presentation. So again, just to remind everyone, Salem is one of our advisory board members. So our ritual as Inspired Growth is that we also invite, every time we have these monthly masterclasses, we invite one of our advisory board members to come and highlight who they are and what it is that they do and engage with the community. And you can also connect with them on LinkedIn should you wish to engage and actually interact with their offerings in terms of their services. So over to you, Salem.
Thank you, Pam. No, I have no issues at all. Thank you so much for the time and thank you for such an engaging conversation, Mr. Buthelezi. I think we were also engaged. I was on my keyboard already taking notes as well. So thank you very much for that engaging conversation. And colleagues, my name is Salem Makwarela. I'm not vendor, but I've got that vendor surname. And I serve as a customer success manager at LRMG. We are a business management consulting company. But as an individual, as a customer success manager, my role really is sitting at the intersection of strategy, which is what we spoke about a lot today, and the execution element part of it. So I sit right in the middle of that and augment that with leaders and organization to turn their ambitious plans and turn them into some capability and behavior building on our end. And that's where I sit. And just what my approach is with anthropological coaching and psychology as well. Anthropology is the study of people, of communities, of society. And where I'm sitting right now in corporate, I am learning quite a lot more about the culture that is in organizations, the societies that make up the network of leaders, of employees, and how some of that translates into the delivery and value that people get from the services that all of us offer. I look at people, I look at culture, And so in industries like engineering and in industries like energy and all of that, we look at technological advancements and AI and what all of that plays with regards to augmenting skills gaps and looking at the agility that leaders can adopt and develop for themselves to augment the conversation that we've been having around how do we actually augment the workforce readiness gap and the skills gap, based on where we are at as South Africans. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if I'm taking a lot of time, but I'd like to just say if you're looking for me, I am on LinkedIn. My name is Salem Makwarela. You can find me there as that. But please let's engage in conversations. I am also a young professional. So some of the challenges that everyone is sharing in the chats, I can relate to very much so because we are all equipped. We're getting all our degrees. We're getting, getting started on being ready for work. And sometimes there's a gap between what our leaders feel they need in the workplace and what we feel as young professionals are able to offer. And so that conversation is really important for all of us to have. Let's engage if you're open to it. Thank you very much, Pam.
Thank you, Salem. Indeed, thank you. Please go and find Salem on LinkedIn and reach out to her and give her some love as our community. And then just to close off, maybe Mary will just highlight that because we are a membership-based community, those who will not maybe go into deep details in the interest of time, because most of the information is available on our website, which is inspiredgrowth.co.za. So Mary, just some highlights from you, ma'am, yeah?
Okay, Pam, we have prepared a long presentation. I'm going to keep it very, very short. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for such an insightful conversation that we're having this evening. So to talk about our membership, I'm going to be very brief. Currently, we have 3 membership categories. The first one is our corporate membership, which is for organizations investing in their people, leadership development, and team growth. Corporate members receive access to membership seats for their teams, customized master classes, and organizational insight reports. The second one category is the individual membership for professionals and entrepreneurs who want to grow. They want to have meaningful conversations like the one we are having right now. And then if you also need support in your growth journey, you can join as an individual member. And then we have the last one is something that's very close to our heart. So through this membership, we have free membership for young people and women between the ages of 18 and 35, because we strongly believe that access to growth, leadership spaces, networks, and opportunities should not be limited by financial circumstances. So the next question is, how do you become a member? You can go to our website and click on the tab that says membership. Alternatively, you can send us an email at info@inspiredgrowth.co.za. And you can also connect with Pam, Dr. Pat, and myself on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Short and sweet and straight to the point, Mary. Thank you so much. So with that, we'd like to then invite and thank everyone for joining as we are preparing to close. We actually then invite Dr. Pat to give us his closing reflections. And then after that, we will be ready to then release you and let you go. But we really appreciate you being here. It's not something that we take for granted. Over to you, Dr. Pat.
Thank you, Pam. Let me take a cue then from Mary and be succinct. First and foremost, let me thank you, Pam, as our chairperson. You've done a fantastic job sharing this session today. It was well done. Secondly, thank all our colleagues that are with us on the chat, and thank you for your contribution and also taking time to be with us here today. So thanks a lot. And also want to thank Salim. Thank you so much. Let me summarize what you've just said. We need to basically follow the anthropological approach in order to continuously push the envelope within the South African incorporated environment. And then the last one that I want to bring in, colleagues, is just a key takeaway message, Pam, for today, that for South African incorporated, it is important to have the right persons or right passengers on the right seats. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we just want to thank you and also thank you, Mlamuli Buthelezi. He's done a fantastic job And I think between myself, Pam, and Mary, we will get you back Mlamuli in some way or another. But let me introduce this. Next month is June, which is Youth Month. So just watch what we're going to be coming with. It's a Youth Month. So our guest speaker will be a youth person. So we'll be dealing with youthful issues, making sure that we continuously push the envelope. And that note, I just want to wish you all well, and God bless you, and back to you, Pam.
Thank you. Nothing more from my side. All that has been said, other than to say, these are monthly masterclasses. So to Dr. Pet's point, we have cook up something nice for June. So look out for that on our socials, especially on LinkedIn, and follow our website for updates. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Pam, please remain behind.
Okay.
Thank you so much. The rest of us can disconnect, colleagues.